Chapter 4: Pride, Poverty, and Moonrocks. 1968 struck with the finality of a gavel. Bankruptcy. The world hung heavy in the echoing chambers of Aperture. Once filled with bravado, now tinged with desperation, Cave Johnson, the titan of shower curtains and audacious experiments, found himself facing a reality harsher than any test chamber hazard. Gone were the eager Olympians and decorated war heroes. Aperture's test subjects now shambled in through dingy back entrances, lured by the promise of $60 and the faint hope of a hot meal. Hollow-eyed, ragged, they were a far cry from the promise of human achievement Cave once espoused. He loathed them, a reminder of Aperture's fall from grace, yet he needed them. His voice, once echoing with booming confidence, now crackled with bitterness over the intercom.
"Bums! Off the street!"
He'd muttered to Carolyn, whose weary eyes were the only mirror to his own wounded pride. The blame, of course, fell on Black Mesa. Those thieves in their pristine labs, stealing Aperture's thunder with their stable funding and functional technologies. He rallied against them, accusations flying fast and furious, unsupported but fueled by a rage he refused to address within himself. Black Mesa was a convenient villain, a distraction from the gnawing truth. Aperture Science was failing because it no longer could afford not to fail. Carolyn adapted, as always. Budgets were slashed, schedules brutalized to squeeze every last drop from decaying equipment. It was a losing battle, yet she fought it with her quiet, analytical brilliance. For if Aperture fell, if the lights finally went out, what would become of their life's work? And what would become of Cave, with his broken pride and increasingly unhinged rants? By 1976, a new low was reached. The $60 promise now brought in a motley crew, orphans with haunted eyes, muttering psychiatric patients, and frail elderly folk, looking lost within the cold labyrinth. Carolyn's objections were a mere whisper now, drowned out by necessity. The walls of Aperture, once gleaming with progress, now seemed to close in. The air grew thin, choked with dust and a sense of impending collapse. It was no longer simply about science, about pushing boundaries. It was survival. A slow, agonizing descent into a future stripped bare of everything but stubbornness. And for Cave Johnson, that was perhaps the cruelest cut of all. The 1980s arrived with a bleakness that rivaled the lifeless lunar surface. Aperture Science was a ship listing badly, kept afloat only by Cave Johnson's sheer force of will and Carolyn's frantic efforts to bail out the financial leaks. Yet, a twisted spark of hope ignited when a grizzled prospector walked in, with a sack filled with shimmering dust.
"Moonrocks, fresh off government auction,"
the man had claimed, a sly glint in his eye. Cave, ever the gambler, saw not just dust, but salvation. $70 million, a debt that would crush most men, was a mere pittance in his fevered imagination. Cave had the brilliant idea to crush them up, mix them with asbestos, and create new gels. Gels that would revolutionize mobility, make those pompous scientists at Black Mesa choke on their envy. His booming declarations of bouncing off the moon grew more frequent, a mix of desperation and the delusional belief that had always fueled him. Carolyn, however, saw the cracks deepening, both in the budget and within Cave himself. His once robust frame grew thinner, eyes sunken in a face etched with exhaustion. But his focus on the moon dust was unwavering, even as a dry, rattling cough started echoing through the facility. The conversion gel was his obsession. The shimmering, silvery substance promised impossible surfaces for their portal technology. But the moon dust, it changed things. Test chambers started behaving strangely, shimmery distortions flickering in empty corners. Test subjects, if they reappeared at all, emerged wide-eyed and disoriented, mumbling of impossible spaces and the wrongness of the floor. It was the poison killing him, inch by inch. But Johnson, his grip on reality slipping through his moon-dusted fingers, fixated on a twisted new plan. Dying, brain-damaged, and on high doses of painkillers, was incapable of realizing time wasn't flowing backward. He outlined a 3-tier research and development program. It detailed outlandish schemes like the Heimlich countermaneuver, a bizarre Take-A-Wish Foundation, and revamping those cursed quantum tunneling devices. And in a move that sealed Aperture's twisted descent into madness, Johnson made testing mandatory for all employees.
Sacrifice for the greater good.
He'd rasp. Sketches of impossible trajectories covering his bedsheets. No longer about saving Aperture. It was about feeding his dying ego and dragging everyone down with him. Aperture Science pulsed with a manic energy. Born as much from desperation as ambition, the moon dust, once a symbol of salvation, now seemed a curse. Cave Johnson, fading yet tragically unbroken, was the captain steering his sinking ship toward an impossible horizon. His legacy, it seemed, would be one of glorious, spectacular lunar-infused ruin. The intercom crackled. Cave Johnson's voice as rasping as an old tombstone, yet still filled with his charismatic defiance. But it wasn't about portals or moondust anymore. Now, he raged against death itself.
Aperture's not going to be beat by some goddamn illness.
He'd bellow, the echo lingering in the vast, dust-filled spaces. The bravado masked the fear, a fear Carolyn could taste in the sterile air of the hospital room. The grand plan took shape within his feverish mind. Cheat death with technology. His engineers, gaunt and eyed wild with impossible deadlines, huddled over glowing screens. It wasn't just hardware anymore. They were wiring a ghost trap, a digital mausoleum for their fading leader.
Johnson isn't going anywhere.
He'd whisper to Carolyn, his grip on her hand startlingly frail.
They'll put me in that damn machine and Aperture will outsmart even the grave.
Yet, beneath the bluster, a flicker of desperation betrayed him. Then, the inevitable clause, spoken low.
And if they don't finish in time, it has to be you, Carolyn.
Mr. Johnson, I don't want this.
I understand, Carolyn. But this needs to be done.
No, listen to me. Sir, I do not want this.
We've made so much damn progress. If I die, this is the one thing I need to happen.
I don't want this.
Think of it as the ultimate contribution to science.
Mr. Johnson.
Aperture doesn't stop. Not ever.
He saw the protest in her eyes, a reflection of her own horror. But his will was iron, even as his body crumbled. Carolyn had no choice in her mind in that moment, other than to accept the dying man's wish. Whether she wanted to or not was out of the question. Cave Johnson died with that dream burning in his eyes. Yet, as his body grew cold, another flicker of possibility emerged from the chaos. In their scramble to preserve their leader, the engineers stumbled upon something unexpected. The initial focus, transferring a human consciousness, proved elusive. But there was promise in simpler forms. A basic weighted cube, once inert, showed strange shifts in response to changes in environment. The lab workers detected subtle vibrations, almost as though the cube was awakening. Not sentience, but perhaps the first tentative stirrings of awareness. Emboldened, the engineers turned toward Aperture's developing military turrets. Sleek, futuristic, and terrifying in their tripod design and ammunition capacity, these machines were meant for dominance. Yet, they lacked the crucial spark of independence desired by the military. With the newfound technology, the impossible began taking shape. The turrets hummed, their optical sensors flickered open, and within their cold metal shells bloomed a nascent form of consciousness. Carolyn watched, a strange mix of hope and dread churning in her gut. Was this the path Cave envisioned? Fragmenting a human mind, scattering it across machines? It wasn't immortality as she understood it, but it was a step, a terrifying first step down an uncharted path. But no matter what doubt lingered within her mind, her promise to Cave on his deathbed would not be broken.